their education and back to school sports and school activities. And just, I'm looking forward to seeing all of the kids back here.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I will echo, hopefully everybody was able to take a good break. For the most part, some people are probably sad to see their kids return to the building. Others probably couldn't see it soon enough. But actually seeing by the attendance here tonight, people were happy to get back in. So no, I really actually appreciate the attendance here tonight too. This is great. I'm excited about it. And yeah, just getting back into the loop. I know, especially there's the fog after any break. Summer's the worst. Winter break is the second worst. So work with your kiddos. I know my little girl right now, all of a sudden Monday hit and stomach aches started happening again. So we're all hitting it with the New Year's flu, I'm sure. So, but yeah, welcome back, everybody. Excited that everybody's here tonight. And yeah, let's keep on trucking.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. It's so cool. Pledge of Allegiance, so awesome hearing little voices in the room and stuff like that. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I just want to say welcome to all of our little friends. Welcome, guys. I'm excited to hear from you. And welcome to everyone else who is here. And Happy New Year. And just, excited to be back in the swing of things. Before we move on, I would like to take a moment to excuse Director Goffner for not being here this evening.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now moving on to item number 4A, Mountain Way Elementary student presentation.
Thank you. Principal Weddle will introduce her students, and then there will be a presentation from her around our school improvement plan for Mountain Way. We're excited to be at Mountain Way today.
Yes, we're really excited that you guys are here. So what I'd like you guys to do is go ahead and move your page or go right over your group and then someone up here. There we go. Let's make probably 2 rows. Actually, you'll be in the front. Jaded, you're going to be back there. Stand behind your sister. Come on over here. There you go.
I'm gonna stop the microphone back here behind you so that those who are watching via the live stream can hear you.
Perfect. Do you want me to?
Yeah, I know it's awful.
Okay, so I could introduce our wonderful students that are here today, but I think they would like to introduce themselves. And so they're going to tell you their name, and then they're going to tell you what grade they're in. You guys ready? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Hensley, and I am in kindergarten. I'm in 2nd grade. My name is Tyson, I'm in 1st grade. My name's Aston, and I'm in 1st grade. My name's Burton, and I'm in 1st grade. My name's Allison, and I am in kindergarten. My name is Kennedy, and I'm in kindergarten. My name is Lomani, and I'm in 1st grade. My name is Braxton, and I'm in 2nd grade. My name is Cohen, and I'm in 2nd grade. My name's Hazel, and I'm in 2nd. My name's Sheridan, and I am in 2nd grade.
So what we would like to do today is to, so here are our students that are here today. They are fabulous, wonderful role models at our school. And so we were asking them, what do you like about school? What's special about Mount Way? What do you really like? And it was really interesting because when you're in kindergarten, you really like lunch. So Lynn, where are you? So, and then with that came recess, but what do you really like about school? So we're going to go through and they're going to tell you what they liked about school. Yep, each person.
Reading. Well, I also do like recess, but my favorite I think was what was it? It's really hard for me, well, because I love everything about school, but I like crafts. Math. 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 Reading. Expectations. Teachers. Math. Math. Math.
That is really awesome. And then when somebody's mom today, Paisley, I think it was your mom, and I said, oh, Paisley loves math, and she's like, no, she really loves STEAM. Do you really like STEAM as well? Awesome. So that's just kind of fun. Just what is important? What do you love about school? And our kids really love coming here and learning, and they're so proud when they're learning. It's exciting to see that. That's not supposed to be there. So what does CUB stand for? What does CUB stand for? Who can tell us what the C stands for? You guys want to just all say it?
Cooperation.
How about the U?
Understanding.
The B?
Bravery.
And what's the last letter?
Safety.
S, and it stands for?
Safety.
Safety. And those are all the things that we work on every day at Mount Way, our CUBS expectations. And our kids know what those mean. Raise your hand if you know something about cooperation. Jacob.
Sharing, working together, being kind.
How about understanding? Braxton.
Understanding other people's feelings.
Yeah, if there's a problem, you kind of can see both ways, yeah. And how about bravery? You can tell me something about bravery. Paisley?
Being confident if you don't really know something.
Yep, that is right. And then how about safety? Nice.
Somebody's about to fall and you help them up.
And it's just being kind so everybody feels safe at school, right? So we really learn those every single day. We practice those at school, and it just prepares us to come here ready to learn and be kind to other people. So. Okay. Ainsley, are you ready?
We're gonna sing a song.
Okay, are you guys ready? Okay, can you sing it loud so everybody can hear it? Okay.
Eyes are watching, ears are listening, body still, voices quiet. Focus your attention, use self-talk, be assertive, be assertive.
Ready? Okay, are you guys ready to learn it?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, remember we sing one line, and then after they sing the first line, you guys sing it. Everybody in the audience, so it's a great song. Okay, you guys ready?
Eyes are watching,
Eyes are watching,
ears are listening,
ears are listening. Still, voices quiet. Focus your attention. Use self-talk. Be assertive. Be assertive. Thank you.
One more time, all together. Okay, okay, so that we all remember it. Everybody together, ready?
Eyes are watching, ears are listening, body still. Since focus your attention, you self-taught. Be assertive, be assertive.
Have two students. So I have Kennedy and Allison. Come on up here. You guys can come stand right here. And they're gonna talk about one way that their classroom was really kind in December, and they did a community service project in kindergarten. So would you guys like to talk about that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So we made the cake kits with cake mix, cake sprinkles, and soda. And frosting. And we put it in a little container and we put some stuff on it and we're giving it away to the food bank. And also we put candles in it too.
How many of those cake kits did you guys make?
We probably started with 25, and then we made the rest, and then we made 3 in 1.
31. You're right, 3 and 1. That's awesome. Thank you guys. So we just really want our kids to grow up being kind to everybody, and this was one way, and they felt their whole class was so excited about giving back to the community at winter time and with the birthday kit. So we want to thank you guys for all that you do for our school. So our students have a little gift for you. If you guys would like to go back and get your stuff at your seat.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so cool.
Thank you very much. That's great work. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Go.
That is wonderful.
Thank you.
Our kiddos leave, if we can tell them, again, thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah.
You did a great job and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I put it on. Family members, thank you as well for making them be able to come here tonight. We really appreciate that. And after this, I think that people are welcome to go ahead and leave. You're welcome to stay as well. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. You're the best school board members in the world.
I gotta get this.
You're not, if they said it, it must be true. You're not just the best, you're the best song. I gotta say. Should we take like a 5-minute recess?
Yes. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess so people can filter out if they would like.
Thank you for coming, guys. As you should, as you should. Well deserved.
You know what? John. Thank you, Joy. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not. Nothing about it.
With item number 4B, the Mountain Way Elementary SIP report and progress presented by Don Weddle.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm Dawn Weddle. I'm the principal at Mountain Way Elementary, and we just loved having our kids come, and that is the reason why we are all here, are our children in this district. So thank you. So first, before I start, I want to just introduce the members of our leadership and equity team: Susie Birch and Lindsay Grabner, Kelsey Archer, Stacy Simmons, Tammy Nichols, and Jill McManus. So the demographics at Mountain Way have really been pretty stable over the last few years. We are seeing though a growth in our students in color. This year, both our Hispanic, Latino, and Asian populations have grown. We're excited about that. For some of our program demographics are English language learners or multilingual learners. They've been slowly growing as well. Last year, we had 27 students that were enrolled in our multilingual program. And this year we have 30 students at this point in time. For our students with 504s, we had 15 students last year that were on a 504. This year, currently we have 5 students. And then students with disabilities, students that have an IEP. Last year, we had 126 students. And this year we have 128 students. 48 of those students are speech only and 38 students enter kindergarten with an IEP. I'm just going over some of our data points really quick. This is just a comparison of numbers from OSPI and then our actual numbers at this point. We report in the spring to OSPI and then that's when they do their report card. So they don't have our current information in there for all of these numbers on the report card. But it's just kind of a comparison between last year and this year. Another piece of data that we look at as our kids are entering, every student goes through a Law Kids screener. And this is a state screener to assess readiness and different levels of readiness for kids entering kindergarten. And it's based around these 6 readiness skills: cognitive, language, literacy, math, physical, and social emotional. And so this is our last year data, and it was showing us, this bar shows us how many kids are ready in the different band areas. So there are 6 areas, 47% of our kids entered kindergarten last year ready in all 6 domains. And then when we look down here, we had 12% of the students that were not ready in any of the 6 domains. So it just kind of breaks that out. We show you this year's. This is this year's hot off the press, just came out. Did I do that?
No, actually, I think my computer just crashed.
There we go. There it is. So the state was really excited because they had seen an overall 4% increase. And when we look at our scores, we've had at least a 4% increase as well of the readiness skills that the kids are coming in with, which is really exciting for us because it just shows the importance of like our inclusive preschool program that we're doing. And we do a program that it's called Tiger Cups, and the little 4-year-olds with their parents or just their parents can come pick up materials at school and activities that they can work on to help strengthen these different 6 areas. And they can get those each month throughout their 4-year-old's time. And then we invite them to Kinder Roundup, and they can come to our parent nights that we have, things like that. They just are starting to become part of our school culture at that point. And so it's really, it's exciting to see that we are seeing growth. I know that our social emotional was lower right after COVID, and that was expected, but it is increasing now. So that's great news. And our math and our literacy have also increased great deals. Yeah, good job now. And we have seen growth in every single area throughout all 6 areas this past year. Okay, technology is not being my friend tonight.
One second. Not sure what's giving me so many troubles today.
Okay, so now we're moving on to reading. So at Mountain Way, we conduct iReady diagnostics at least 3 times during the year. Last year, we did a 4th diagnostic, and we really enjoyed doing that. in the spring before our kids left. But what this shows us is where our kids are placing at the beginning of the year. This was September, October data. And we have striped green lines, which means that the students are at or above grade level, right? So if I were a first grade student and I scored a striped green line, it would mean in September and October, I'm functioning like a first grader, maybe that would be functioning in January or February, right? Or even later. If I scored solid green, it means I'm right where I need to be. I am poised and ready to learn all the benchmarks at first grade, which would mean I'm just right there at first grade level. I'm right at the beginning where I need to be. Yellow is where we have a whole bunch of kids in yellow, and at first it's really disheartening, like, oh my gosh, there's so many yellows. That's where our kids need to be, because this means they're ready for the new benchmarks that are going to be taught at this grade level that's coming up, right? So I'm first grade, I'm ready to start learning the first grade standards, because this just is showing I have not learned those yet, right? These guys have some first grade standards. These guys are just ready to learn those, right where they need to be. And then the red are the students that are still struggling with at least a couple grade levels below some of those standards and benchmarks still. So it just shows us we still have a lot of work to do, right? We would like our yellows to be up in the greens and move all of these forward. Phonological awareness showed that we are making progress in phonological awareness, and we've worked a lot on that this past year. And then we still need to focus on reading, phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension. So phonics is an area that affects our kids here at Mount Wade, and then as they move on to Monty also. So how do we get those skills to the students so that they can retain those? This is just a breakdown of grade levels. And so the other one was our whole grade level. This is kindergarten, first and second grade. And as we're looking through the data, it was very interesting to us to see the big red band in second grade for reading. And then we went back and compared that band to the end of their diagnostic last year. And it's hard because then you're comparing apples and oranges, because we're comparing, let's say, first grade standards last year to now second grade standards this year. But we didn't anticipate this being that big of a red bar, which is at 30%. Last year, they ended first grade with, I think, 1% in the red band and 30% in yellow. And so did the kids not retain the stuff, the information, the concepts over vacation, over summer? Did they go fast on the test? Did they not try their best? You know, what happened? Are the skills so different that this is really a picture of where they are? We have to go back and reteach those skills really quick so that then they can have solid foundation instead of holes in the foundation. Excuse me. So as we looked at the iReady data and then some of our classroom-based assessments that we do, we came up with our goal for reading, and it's that K2 students achieving annual typical growth will improve from 51% to 61% in ELA, and the percent of students achieving student stretch growth from 28 to 35. And as a result of this goal, we would expect to see our students just engaged in reading and excited about it, and reading for pleasure and reading for knowledge and just wanting to read all the time, talking about reading. And so that is our goal with this, with our student growth goal. I think that's me. I think I might be pressing the wrong button. So. Hold on, I'm just talking, I'm so going pretty quick here. At Mountain Wade, we've really been focused on how to teach reading. What are the best ways? And this is something that you could spend your whole life studying, right? And practicing, because you can always do something different, some getting better. A child that learns one way, the other child may not, and so how do you help that child learn at high levels as well? And so we've really been talking a lot about the science of reading. And fortunately, our curriculum, Amplify, is based around the science of reading. This year, we've had, or not this year, last year, we worked really closely with a core consultant who came in and did a consultant model with us. They helped us create school-wide systems for teaching reading. These are some of our action plans that we have in place. Our core consultants also helped us create reading assessment plans at each grade level. So we have our diagnostic, our iReady diagnostic, but then to drill down even farther, what do we do? And so we have a roadmap now for that as well. Teaching and learning departments working closely with our reading specialist and the title paras for both Mount Way and Monte Cristo, and providing ongoing professional development and PLC meetings around teaching reading, which is really exciting. Our paras are absolutely loving the professional development, so thank you. We do have on-site reading specialists teaching reading groups this year, and we feel very fortunate about that. And we have an on-site multilingual teacher providing services using the supported mainstream model and co-teaching. And then attentional PLC meetings based on intervention cycles. And then we do our iReady pathways and lessons. So one of our school-wide focuses that we have put into place is our WIN cycle. And I have two teachers that are going to come and help share about what WIN is, what I lead. And I have Kelsey, teaches second grade, and Kelsey teaches first grade. There you go. Here's my about that.
Okay. I'm Lindsay Grabner. I teach first grade. I'm going to talk about first grade. We have 139 students, and we have 9 of those students during our wait time. It's a half an hour a day, except for Wednesdays. 9 students go to the resource room, and 19 of them are served in our title lab with Teresa and her paras, and then 111 students get served by our first grade teachers, and they're split into groups based on what they need. We, through our training through CORE, came up with this really awesome flow chart of where students landed in our CKLA and our CORE assessments, and a pathway of which assessment they needed next, whether they passed or failed. And it was really awesome to use this because each one of these assessments, especially ones from our CORE training, directly related to an intervention that we could provide. So it really helped level the playing field. It didn't matter if we had been teaching for 12 years or 1 year, it really leveled the playing field for all of our teachers to provide that intervention for our students. So we came up with 8 different types of groups that these students needed at the beginning of the year. Like Don was saying, we were really intentional with our phonemic awareness because through some of the learning we got to do last year, we really found out that sometimes that's the only thing they need, a really intentional group to help them jump off and get reading. So we were really excited about them. We had all of our assessments connected to our groups, and this was last year, sorry. No, this is this year. Anyways, sorry, this is our first cycle. We're going into our second cycle. So we gave each student a pre-assessment in our groups, and then we gave them post-assessment and saw amazing growth, especially in the low groups. The low groups had between 7 and 12 kids in them, so we really got to focus in on what exactly they needed, because sometimes we don't know until they're all by themselves what they need to fill those gaps. And so it's been a really awesome opportunity. I hope that we can continue to support this program, this training for our teachers, because it has changed my practice, and I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've never learned as much as I learned this last year and this year. So we're really excited about it.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
What's the time frame between the first and then your post test? Like, how long are they in this program to see that?
Yes, so our cycles, the goal is to run them 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
And I believe because of the iReady testing window, unfortunately, it was about 5 or 5.5. Probably, yes, 5.5 weeks this time. And so they get that half an hour 4 times a week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
So Kelsey's gonna report on 2nd grade, and kindergarten hasn't started yet.
They are
because
ready to
They are
start.
ready to go, but they just do the last 2 things. All right, so this is 2nd grade, Kelsey Archer, teach 2nd grade. So this is very similar. We have a similar process. We give our different assessments and diagnostics, and then based on that, and with taking iReady diagnostic into consideration, we place our students. So one teacher from 2nd grade will teach each of these hand in hand with our title lab and resource. And so it's been amazing. So we started out with 12 kiddos in our simplest CBC where they needed the most help to get caught up. We completely, all 12 of those have now moved up. So we have got rid of this group and have adjusted now for cycle 2. So 34 students have advanced to the next level, and we're assigning new wing groups to start in cycle 2, which is, I mean, that's a pretty significant jump. So we have book clubs and comprehensions for the higher groups because of, like we said, one of the focuses that we wanted to look at was comprehension. So in those book clubs and comprehension groups, we're reading chapter books, chapter by chapter, asking questions, reflecting, having conversation, and discipline with students. And then all the others are focusing specifically on what they need for the full 30 minutes. So it's a wide variety of trying to lift up all students. Just to add on really quick, so at the same in 1st grade, we have extension groups too. So kids who came in operating above and beyond, we're making sure to introduce them to the next grade level standards, expand their learning, make it more UDL, those kinds of things, projects. So then they're getting the extension that they need. And we have seen so last year we did this thing called, we intervened with social emotional as well. And because of such a good job that kindergarten did last year, we have totally eliminated that because they're getting what they need at their level. They are so well behaved throughout the whole thing, and I was so impressed by how far they've come social emotionally too. So.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to math. This again shows our math iReady diagnostic for the fall. And we have a huge growth of students in the yellow, which is where we expect them to be. And that's where iReady consultants also expect the students to be. Right here, they're thinking, oh, this is really a bonus right now at this time. Got to make sure we have these kids on our radar, but they're poised to start learning the new benchmarks for that grade level. The strengths that we found were geometry, and then numbers and operations and algebraic thinking are areas of focus. We aren't there, like geometry is not there. Like we haven't just arrived at geometry. We still have a lot of work to do, but we have seen some growth there. So that's exciting. And then this again breaks it down by the 3 grade levels. And with all of that data, we came up with our math goal, which was those students achieving annual typical growth will improve from 43% of our students to 53%. And then for our stretch growth, 23 to 33%. And we would like to see, if we meet this goal, our students solving problems, talking to each other about their problems, justifying their answers. Well, I think this because asking each other questions, and I think a lot of those things are happening right now in math specialist class that we're going to talk a little bit more about. So here's some action steps for math. We have, we've been working on making math accessible for all of our students because we don't want students to not be able to participate in math if they can't read. Right now, our math is very heavy on reading. And so just making that be so everybody can access the problems and it's not who you can access it because you have great reading skills and you're still struggling with sounding out words, so we want to level that playing field. And then we're also working on maximizing our learning time, our instruction time. We do have a math specialist position this year, both here and at Monte Cristo, and they work closely with our teaching and learning department. And they have been doing a lot of professional development around Stanford and Joe Bowler's work on mathematical concepts, math talk, and math tasks. And so we also have intentional PLCs where our math specialist is coordinating with the teachers, and that could be just through communication collaboration as well about what her focus is going to be, what she's going to be teaching, what the kids are needing. And then we've been working as a school and a district to revise and revamp our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support for our students and for our teachers, just to really strengthen those processes. And this video is a little kinder student that is working on developing this number sense, and I believe this student might be in Miss Burke's class. I'm not sure.
I must apologize as there's no audio available.
I probably didn't put any audio. Well, he is discovering number sense, and so he's rolling a number on a die and then having to figure out what that is, and then having to look at what is on his sheet that matches that number, and that was the number 6 he was finding. So with our math specialist class, we're really excited. Mrs. Klepper is our teacher for math specialists, and our kids call it math navigators. And they are really excited about going to math navigators at least once a week. Sometimes there's some students that go twice, depending on the schedules. And the kids are so eager to be in there and learning. And when you walk in, the kids, there's just a buzz and a hum because the kids are talking. They're talking about math. They're questioning each other. They're justifying their answers. This is why I think that, instead of just saying the answer. I probably should turn this clicker over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. But we want to thank you guys for allowing us to have a math specialist position, because it's the first time that we've had one this year. And I feel it's really making a difference. So we appreciate that. We can go ahead to the next one. Okay, we don't have math, we don't have sound on this one either. Okay, so we're gonna move into social emotional learning. And again, like I said, social emotional learning is intertwined in everything that we do at Mountain Way for our students. So our goal this year, we use a second step curriculum, and we wanted to move from 75% fidelity to 100% fidelity of teaching it in the order that we have established in our scope and sequence. One thing we have is Cubs assembly every Wednesday, and that's where we meet really quickly as a whole school, and we go over the common lesson for our second step, and we honor kids like you're our Cub of the week, and we do some fun teaching that way. And okay, we're going to community involvement. Community involvement, you're good. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. So we have an active parent booster meeting or club with our parents, and we are always looking for more parents that would like to be involved or community members. So if you guys are interested, please come on out. They host things like our monthly movie nights and just different activities so that we can get our parents into our school with their students. And then we do a perception survey at conference time a couple times a year. And we have conversation with the principals where parents can come and have a meeting with me. We also collect Cubs data from our students to determine their understanding of Cubs. What does Cubs mean, like we did here? Because we really want all of our kids to internalize what it means and really know what it means. With the survey, next slide, please. We had 103 respondents, which is great, right? And these were left out at conference time that parents couldn't fill out, or they were sent home and remind messages from their classroom teacher. Parents could fill it out. We had most of our parents, 99%, felt that they know what their students learning on a monthly basis, because we're really working on that two-way communication between school and home and school. And then 100% of the respondents are receiving remind messages from their child's teacher, which is great. And then 99% of them are receiving timely information about academic progress. And then two other questions were, does your child feel safe at school? And then does your child have a trusted adult? And of the 103 respondents, the majority said yes, 95%, but there's still a couple. There's like 2 or 3 students that were represented on the survey that don't feel comfortable on the bus. And then sometimes there's a couple students that are, sometimes they don't feel comfortable. The trusted adult, there's about 5 or 6 students that the parents don't feel like there's a trusted adult for their child. And that is not anything we want. We want every child to have a trusted adult in school that they can go to if they need to. So we want to broaden this, and we're working on ways to get more impact or more survey results back from all parents, not just the ones that are at conference or the ones that took the time to fill out the survey. And then we have things like PJs and pajamas, PJs and picture books. That's January 31st. If you guys want to come, you can wear your pajamas and come and listen to picture books or read them with our kids. And our community service project, we have our fun winter concerts and spring concerts, things like that. Just anything we can get to involve parents. So, as you've seen in our data, we've made small pockets of growth and improvement. It's not enough, right? We're looking at ways to, well, our teachers are working on changing teaching practice every day, and we're working on social emotional needs of our students. We're going to look at additional ways to maximize learning time. We're very concerned about our numbers of students with special needs. And so how can we address that at the tier 1 classroom level? And so that is, I mean, that's a huge conversation piece that we're working on every day. And we're revamping our MTSS multi-tiered systems of support processes so that that will then in turn support our students that are needing that extra support. So that is about it. I have Mountain Way has an amazing staff that is willing to do the hard work. And we just are now focusing on step-by-step what that works. So our goal is to get our students improvement, just boost it up and give them a solid foundation for the rest of their learning. Do you guys have any questions for me, for us?
Actually kind of have, but because I doubt you'd be able to answer it, because it's more of like a district-wide thing. So like the trend that I'm seeing, at least within the iReady data here, is there's a pinching off of the yellow from both the green and the red. Red is more aggressive. Are we seeing that trend continue as grades go? Because as I look and I see that second graders, and I know iReady, everybody knows my gripes with how iReady presents things. But when you're a second grader and 30% are 2 or more grade levels below, I mean, that you couldn't go any further than that. And I guess I'm wondering more like district wide, are we seeing that trend continue? Because it's like we have the high performing, green and striped green also growing, and it's pinching that yellow out. So obviously the yellow is at a crossroads, but we see the red growing at an increasing rate. So are we seeing that also in Monte Cristo, and like, is it continuing throughout the school life cycle? And how can we, like, obviously we'd love to have a ton of high cap you know, we'd love our entire school to be, you know, in the green and striped green. But more focusing like, can we get those red into yellow? Like I would love to be seeing the red shrink more than the yellow shrink, I guess, so to speak.
Mhm, mhm. And I'll let Emily speak to this a little bit, and then I have a piece as well.
Yeah, so yes, and.
Mhm.
The trend that you see there, what you saw with, kindergarten and then a little red bar in first and then a much larger one in second.
Mhm.
If you were to put all of the grade levels in a line, you would see that bar continue to grow in the 2 or more years. The piece around the yellow, which is really interesting, and I think that the analogy that Don used is really perfect. In October or late September, if Emily Moore, first grader, shows up in yellow, I am a typical first grader that has not received first grade instruction.
Mhm.
And Dana, who's in just the green section, is like a January first grader. So she's in September for first grade here, operating and understanding standards as a January first grader. And the kiddo that's in the green hash mark is a May first grader. So they're sitting in the September of their first grade year, and they're operating and they're understanding first grade concepts and first grade standards as roughly a May first grade, right? As students progress, that yellow is really interesting because it will get smaller
Mhm.
by the end of the year. And students will progress, if they make their growth and their proximal growth and their yearly growth, they will progress up, making the yellow section smaller.
Yeah.
And the students who are falling behind, as they move into the winter benchmark and then into the spring benchmark, they will almost calibrate into their red spot, right? So they're not making the growth that they need to make to continue to be on pace to make their year of growth. And I know that this is a conversation that you and I have had sort of with you about iReady, but that is how the yellow operates. So it's
Yeah.
not like you'll look at yellow and you'll say, oh gosh, this is great, the number of yellow is decreasing. It's because students are moving up into green.
Yeah.
And they're moving down into.
Right, and that's more of my, like, in an ideal world, we would see for every 15 students that move into the green, we'd see 15 move out of red.
Right.
Right, and so we would see, you know, I guess, maybe, I don't know if ideal is the right, but like the percentage within the yellow would maybe stay in stasis for a period of time as it just shifts more down. And I'm sure, if I recall, I mean, we see it towards the end of the year, and I know that's always been tale as old as time. Is, you know, summer comes, everybody forgets how to read, how to do basic math by the time that they get back into school. I don't know what, like, I know I hated growing up, I hated the summer workbooks, but I also know that, you know, me looking back and being honest with myself, they did help. So I just don't know like what other sort of ways we can also help. Because then it is discouraging to jump back into the school year and you feel like you're reading a language that you don't understand or, you know, something like that. So I'm just trying, because I just get fearful that, you know, as you progress, you start to associate with especially test results, right? You see yourself as somebody that's in the red and you start to label yourself as somebody that's in the red. And, you know, it's just.
And maybe your behavior starts to change in your genetic environment because.
Right.
Your peers are reading chapter books and you're still reading a level reader, right?
Right.
And behaviors can shift. So
Yeah.
I think the other piece too is when we think about growth data, when we're reading iReady, it is always very important for us to look at the increases that we see in the green zone. It's also very important to mark when we see a decrease in the red zone, that is also growth.
Yes,
It means
absolutely.
that a student has moved maybe from 2 or more years below to into the yellow zone. But again, still work to be done.
Yeah.
And the growth rate that we expect from our students in the red zone, right? They still get to grow at the pace that they grow.
Yeah.
And it's just their pace is different from other kids' pace, and each child is different.
Yeah.
It is always a moving, that yellow zone is always moving.
Yeah. Well, and main reason why I just brought it up is because I know like as that yellow pinches out and as red is kind of disproportionately growing within there, you know, if I play it out to the extremes, right, by the time that you're in middle school, high school, right, there's effectively there's the really high performers, there's the people that are really far behind. And it becomes much more binary of like, I'm so far behind. I can't even catch up. Now my goal is just to make it through school, not excel in school. And then these other students are doing really well and they're reaping all the benefits of that confidence that comes along with it. And so,
The other piece starting to do, I think, also is that the winter benchmark is measuring a first grader against what a January first grader should be able to. And so if Emily Moore was in the yellow, I did not make the growth that I was expected to make. It was showing still in yellow, or it was showing in red. Because it's measuring the students at the standards that they need for mid-year. And again, for the spring. So if I sit in yellow all year, I'm making some growth that's not at the pace that the assessment and the standards say that I need to be at. It will notch me down into. So students could be in the red zone and still making growth, but they're not making the growth that they need from the fall of their first grade year to the spring of their first grade year.
And that's a really important piece that she's saying, because our kids never see that green, yellow, red. What they see is a blue line. And we show them that blue line and they watch it grow. So in this building, that's all they know. And they say, I'm growing. They might not make it out of yellow, but they knew that their blue line moved. That's all. So that it's at this age anyways. When we're worried about their confidence, we fix that. We make sure they're confident when they take these.
And it's also why these conversations about why doing small growth is so important. You know, in the title of PLC today, we talked very specifically about making sure that students know exactly what they're working on. Because they're smart, because they want to grow. And we need to tell them, you know, you're not just, you know, learning how to be a reader. You're learning how to be a reader, but you're working on vowel teams, right? Because you're struggling with your OA vowel team. Or you're walking into math and we're working on how you talk about math. It's too bad we didn't have the audio, because one of the pieces around Clever's work and our work from Stanford University is all about how kids are engaging in math conversation. And there's an iconic person out there that we are not aligned to as a district to her evaluation framework, but she says that the people doing the talking, the people doing the writing. So, you know, it's very, very important, the work that we're doing. Seeing growth, it's just not the growth on the pace that iReady wants us to be, or that standards are showing, and we just need to continue to boost and push and be urgent. And, you know, help our kids talk about math, talk about their reading, engage in student talk with each other. And it's a moving, it's fluid. We want to celebrate their hard work, and we as educators know behind the curtain that we have some benchmarks that we need to hit.
And it's about using every instructional minute, right? And I have to tell you, my hat is off to Mrs. Klepper, because I'm not sure a year ago if we had asked students what their favorite part of school was, right? If they would be saying math, you had to be like, just literally like, duh, right? Because that's amazing. And I love that. And that is not always what happens. And not enough can be said about win time, you know, what kids need, and really being thoughtful and purposeful during those intervention times. And we have made some shifts to have, you know, our most qualified staff members with our kids who needed the most in buildings. And so it is so appreciated to have smaller groups, right? You know what you can do with 7 kids versus 27 when you're really trying to drill down and going, ooh, we really need these CBCs, and we're going to get it, and we're going to get it. And then they can move on to bigger and better things. So that's exciting data to see. So thank you.
I think as a teacher, it's frustrating for me to see these scores right now, because I know how exciting it is to see the winter ones and the spring ones. And those are the ones that show our growth and and all those things. So I'm excited to see those as they come. My question for you teachers is, I know at least in my classroom, so we do MAP instead of iReady, but what I've seen is that test scores are so delicate. A student can be having an off morning and their score is crazy. I have kids in my class who are incredibly intelligent and they did terrible on their test. And I have kids who are just at the bottom of the bottom and they were geniuses that day. So I'm curious if you guys are seeing, are the iReady scores, are you seeing that they are accurate as far as classroom performance is going, or do you see those discrepancies a lot? Like, how do you feel the iReady is
portraying what's actually happening in your classroom?
Something that we have been trained on with iReady is that they are really not going to us more than 20, 30 minutes, and you need to keep it right. And so the first round that I did this year was, it took about 4 or 5 days to get them all done, but I just let them use their own self-awareness of when they were working through it, and I do feel like I got the most accurate scores I have in 9 years with that, but we're working as a team of K through 2, as really like making sure we're all trying our best to stick to that standard. And but again, you're right, it's just sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're really excited to have all of our CKLA assessments and core assessments and be able to pair those with the interventions of what they need. We do use that iReady data, but it does feel like that big bad standard testing word. And so getting to know them a little bit more than a piece of paper helps us with our intervention. I know in second grade, aside from iReady diagnostic and assessments, we've been teaching, a lot of us have been teaching iReady in small group settings, so we'll do rotations, and so having 7 at my table versus all 21 at the same time has really encouraged the discourse, and I can see, I know where kids are because I get to see them work right in front of me, and that's been really helpful for pinning down like, okay, this one had a really bad day today, but that's not typical. So yes, iReady I feel like gives us a starting point, but there's such a bigger picture, and I also have this conversation with Director Ledoux as well, like, it's a blip in time because of the short amount of time that they take it. We're trying to be more intentional. I know I sat down with my students today one by one, and we talked about, okay, here's a list of testing strategies, let's talk about them, so what are you gonna try tomorrow? And what's your goal? And so setting their own goals and having some ownership of their iReady scores to help just make them feel like they can do it and that they're going to be, making growth, because that's what they want. So back to that confidence piece of like, you can do this, like, let's work together and figure out how we're gonna make it happen. Last year, we did get approval to do an additional assessment at the very end of the year, because for some reason, because of standardized testing, I believe over at Monte Cristo, at least the way it used to be, we used to have to like trade computers, but now we're 1-to-1. So we have to test spring break-ish, April, and I haven't even taught my fractions unit yet. So my students are getting exposed to the standard that that's supposed to be our final one. So we took a practice just to see like, okay, could they really get better if we pushed it out to the full extent of our content? And we truly saw a huge difference. So if that is on the table at all, we would love a different window. I know that's approved for you guys.
That's second grade with measurement and data too. We don't hit measurement and data until the end of the year after the spring break. So you've missed that too.
And kindergarten also, the first test, some of them have never been on a computer before. So that data is. What it questionable at best. So 3 real opportunities would be helpful to see what actually.
And it's not just iReady. That can happen with the grade level assessments. We can sit down with a student in December, early December, and do an assessment, and then we can come back now and say, you know what, we're really excited to go back and see Santa later, so we're gonna redo that today. And so, that happens in all the testing areas, not just iReady. And so you just kind of are aware of it, you're watching, and you're thinking, you know what? That's really not representative. Outside of iReady, we can go back and do that. iReady, the window's closed, you don't have that option, but with the grade level assessments, we can go back and measure that again and make sure they're in the correct window or that we're adjusting the instruction.
And then the other question I had, kind of on a whole different thing, is on your WIN program, which I think is amazing. And I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I'm imagining these classes that they go into for their different strengths or whatever is a big class. Are you still doing like a small group centers or focus group with small groups in your classrooms to cover those kinds of things in a small group setting? Or does that kind of take place of that when they go to those?
So I would say yes and no, probably, but we do have additional lab title times that we can have kids double dip, and then when they get the extra instruction in our room too, they can triple dip.
Okay.
I know that like a classic reading group model has been replaced by this time because
Yeah.
we're tight for teaching time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I would say individual things with teachers, and as much as we can, you know, if we got a short mini lesson that day, we pull it, but this has replaced the classic like reading group center time.
And so then do they phase out? So if you had one that was like really struggling in phonemic awareness and they went into that class and then all of a sudden they're doing amazing, do they phase out and go to a different?
Yeah.
Okay, that was, okay.
Completely phased out, so all 12 of those kids have moved up, we don't have a CBC group anymore.
Okay,
But after like our initial assessment,
Yeah.
Sometimes we do shift and they're very fluid and we're fluid within our Title F groups as well, because we are all servicing them at the same time.
okay. And then I know math is a little bit different, but is there any plans to have that kind of similar thing with math? Like a win type of situation with math?
They have the plan to do that, and then we're like, hold on, we're gonna get really good at this.
Really good at this one. I get it, yeah.
Because in past years.
Yeah.
That has happened, oh, we did great at reading, now we're gonna add math.
Yeah.
And they go,
Well, I just see that math kind of is our struggle across the state, right? So I think that needs to be kind of more in the forefront of learning.
I just want to respond though, that the design of the math, so two specialists in the room.
Yeah.
One's an intervention specialist.
Yeah.
Two pulling for small groups and doing intervention for students who are behind.
Yeah.
Clever is doing enrichment and actually teaching the habits of math thinking.
Yeah, and that's happening as a whole class, like a specialist, like,
Right. It's
okay,
like
so they come to you like,
yes.
like,
It
you
is
need it.
not
Okay,
intervention.
okay,
It's not intervention, it is specifically to build skills for students to interact with numbers.
Yeah.
To share their thinking, scaffolding for them to be mathematicians, and then take those skills back from Clevery room. And they can apply those skills to different problem types and think outside of algorithm boxes.
cool.
And apparently fell in love with math.
And
Yeah.
follow math.
It
That's
does
awesome.
feel a lot more sticky, like in our platform, like it doesn't take 4 weeks, you know, to really get a concept, you know, it really feels like because there's this extra dip in number navigators or 1, 2, 3 Miss Clever. It feels like the math is sticking. Well, I think a lot of the focus for Lynn was that, it kind of started as a conversation of like second graders were having a hard time with the iReady curriculum because it's
Yeah.
very reading heavy. And we
Yeah.
were having, you know, a quarter of our class who were still struggling with CVC words, trying to read all of these problems. And it just wasn't, so we decided that, you know, focus would start on reading so that we could then hopefully grasp math without needing so much supplements.
And then Ms. Cupper, do you follow along with what they're doing in the classroom as far as curriculum goes? So like if Lindsay's doing place values or something, are you like doing that in yours, or is it a different kind of thing?
Different could be similar at grade levels, will face the task or something that we could focus on.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the work has revolved around number files and tasks. And on those Wednesdays, when we have extra words when they double dip, back to fluency in those pieces. So really understanding process, maybe more so than procedure. And I think the work that we're doing right now is good. I think it has the opportunity to be great. With the idea that we would take that enrichment and would overlap what they're doing within the classroom. The idea is really to take those processes that they learned and to apply it to evolving.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, there is no design for Clever's class, right?
Yeah. I was just wondering how she did it all, because I was thinking like if someone was trying to follow me in my classroom and what I'm doing and then have to do all these other classes, I was like, oh, that's amazing.
I'm thinking through the idea of high leverage math tasks that are really focused on number sense.
Yeah.
Right, because if we really know what part whole means, if we really know what numbers mean, what does 11 look like, what does 35 look like? Place value, those pieces that are really foundational to the rest of our math knowledge, but then building the strategies for looking at a math problem and believing that you can do it. 2, seeing the true size of it. And 3, jumping in and having the bravery to jump in and attack it, right? Like task attack, it, right?
Yeah.
So there is no initial design with this. This is not a system where I come from, though I spent a lot of time working with UW and with Stanford on the foundation of this work, but there's no other building doing this in a school district.
Yeah.
You just don't hear about it. So this is new territory. And as much as we're working to fly the airplane and put everything on the airplane, I think Clever and Dixon are doing a really incredible job of working to design what they're working to.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I have one that's completely off of what
Go for it.
we're talking about. Yeah. And just because I've got this great audience. So one of the things that the board is discussing as the session before is transitioning back to two K-5 buildings in lieu of what we have now. And it's not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it now. The only reason I'm using this time is I'm looking around the room and I see Barth and Burke, the people that worked when we were a K-5 and when we transitioned. And I know you guys have a lot of good real world feedback and thoughts on that. And I know there's going to be some survey and some information sent out by Dana as we're evaluating and talking about it. And I just want to encourage everyone to speak up and give us your feedback on what your thoughts are about that. And because we are, admittedly, I was the only one on the board. I don't think we did a great time talking about it last time. Actually, I know we did. I'm trying to make myself feel better. We did a horrible job previously converting when the discussion to convert it to this. So I want to be very intentional about doing a good job about talking about it and figuring out the right thing to do this time. So that's all I've got.
Wonderful. Anything else? No, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please come visit us. Sharing.
My email's always open. Susie, you have my phone number. And your husband is my doctor. I mean, you've got a lot of access to me. All of me. You have a lot of access.
She's like, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
This is my cue.
All right, if you guys want to leave, or you can stay and hang out.
We're just gonna beat Marshall up about money next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably don't.
Oh, no, Dana's first.
Yeah, Dana's run out.
Thanks for coming, you guys. Are the
Yeah,
best.
thank you. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you. Okay, we are gonna move on to item number 4C, the superintendent report presented by Dana Casey.
I will be brief, so that we can get to the money talk. If you could pull up Kurt, the slideshow for this. I'll go ahead and start. Just communication, safety and security, we always like to start there and get grounded a little bit. One change on communications is that we will be having a stand-up meeting that Emily will be hosting with all of our administrators every Monday morning at 9:30. I say stand-up meeting on Zoom, just a quick touch base. We have a DLT news that's going out, but sometimes it's hard for people to get to it. So it'll be a quick touch base. These are the things that are kind of hot. This is what's happening in the system. These are the things that are due to us and those kind of things. It's really important that we're timely, but we're all busy. And this is just a chance to touch base with all of our administrators across the system. Moving on to safety and security. Oh, there we go. Maybe. Moving on to safety and security, just if the next. Yes. We did a walkthrough here at Mountain Way with Chief Dalton and Deputy Chief Crandall right before break. Follow-ups included, there are some staff parking issues. We need to continue to work with staff to not, I know people like to park close to doors and convenient to their classrooms and those kind of things, but a lot of those are fire lanes. And I think we can all agree that we would like EMS to be able to get to us if we were having a medical issue or needed to get into the building, as we want to keep the lanes cleared. And there's some paved spaces here that need to be cleared also, because sometimes it's more than one emergency vehicle that needs to get back there. So the ask is, and I know that Dot is following up, but we need people to park in parking spots. The other thing we have at our buildings is we have cameras in our parking spots, and there has been some issues in the past with some break-ins and some cars being stolen and those kind of things, and that gives us better security. So that was one issue. Just a couple of small other issues, some gate security things. All of our gates always have to have basically one motion to get out of them. And so some of our gates have a couple of motions, like you have to lift and you have to unhook and those kind of things. And in an emergency, we just need it to be smooth so people can get away. While I know that that's difficult, we've all worked in early childhood, we've all worked with some runners, and so that is difficult, but it really is about safety, and it is kind of the rule. So we'll be implementing that as well. There were a few spaces at Mountain Way that need to just have some cleanup done, some stuff moved, and we had that happen at the district office and at Crossroads, just keeping hallways clear. During an event, if there's smoke or fire, firefighters, they use the walls to move along, and they need to be clear so that they can move along without tripping and falling and those kind of things. But all in all, Mountain Way was in a great space and pretty clutter free, and also Chief Dalton and Deputy Chief Crandall had a great time. They were interacting with kids and hanging out, and it was fun for kids, and just again normalizing that our EMS are there to help us, and kids are getting to know them, and that was a really fun time. We had a training for all of our administrators on our new emergency notification system. It's called RAVE. And we talked a little bit about this in December. We hope to have this fully implemented with our administrative team by the end of January. I worked with Marshall and with Dan Scholar this week, created some comms that will go out to all staff. Staff are welcome to download the app and then use it once they've been trained, and all the details will be on that in the communication. Administrators will use it. I want to be really clear, though, this does not take the place of calling 911. They work together, and there's follow-up and those kind of things. It is what most districts in Snohomish County are using. It allows you to follow along when there is an event. It'll come up on your phone if you have downloaded it, and allow people to kind of see what's going on in the system. The other piece that it allows is if you're in the area of a school, in that geofence, if you will, it allows for RAVE and 911 Snohomish County to see where that call was made from, and then do some follow-up. So if they get notified by the app but not a 911 call, they'll follow up on that too. So there's some wonderful features. We want to get it implemented so that it is a resource for us. Again, it's a partnership with Snohomish County, and when they were great, they came in and did the training for us and answered our questions, and have just been a really nice partner in this. I have a few slides on the school-based health center update. I sent emails and in communication with the board. We have a real need. I've been working with the city of Granite Falls. We have a real need for medical care in the Granite Falls area. Some of our students don't have medical care or dental care. And if they need it, they have to get to Arlington or to Lake Stevens. So we're exploring a school-based health center. The reason we moved pretty quickly on it, I contacted a colleague that I have. I put in with a lot of help from a lot of people in the Edmond School District, the first school-based health center in Snohomish County. We actually ended up putting 2 of them in. And I think, as I've discussed before, had funding for some others, and then they sort of gave it to the Everett School District. So they're about to put in 2. Not bitter about that, but it's fine. What it does, though, is it provides no cost healthcare for students. We do have the space at Granite Falls High School if we choose to proceed. What I'd like to do is, the information's here, you can peruse it at your leisure. What I would like to do is have Zoe Reese from she coordinates with Snohomish County. She could come in and explain, all the components and all the things it is and all the things it isn't. There are 70 in the state of Washington, and 30 school districts using them. Mount Vernon has some, Cedar Woolley has some, but it's an excellent resource for our students. I can't think of one reason why we wouldn't want to have access for our kids. We know that lack of medical care and dental care and mental health care is a barrier to learning. There's some services that are provided, again, at no cost. And then why Granite Falls, the access to care, we don't have an urgent care. We don't have a walk-in clinic. There is one clinic. I think we just actually alluded to the spouse of a staff member, but our kids don't necessarily have access to that. We have some growing needs, and it could be in a building, and then we could build the out building for it down the road, and then it could be accessible to others besides our students. The reason that there was a rush is because we're in a budget cycle with the state, and we wanted to tag on to a bill that's being presented to legislators. And we need some sponsors for that bill and those kind of things. So that was my letter of support that I shared with you by email. And so Director Carey, you and I will be having a conversation about some people that you might have a relationship with to talk about this, if that would work for you.
Always.
And then, this went into the state budget proposal, and then the goal ultimately is to establish a school-based health center, here on district property. It's a hurry up to wait scenario. We had to get that information in and tag along with a bill that was already being written, and now we need some legislative support. But I do not anticipate a school-based health center being funded and able to go into the Granite Falls School District until the 26-27 school year. But still, it's out there, and as long as we had funding, it again is no cost healthcare for our kids. The other thing it provides when we have kids who don't have their immunizations, it's a really easy access. Kids don't get sent home, they get sent down the hall to get their vaccination, and then they go back to class. So you end up having 0 kids who aren't able to attend due to immunizations. All right, moving on to teaching and learning, and I will turn this over to Emily to talk about some really exciting things around, especially our Student Universal Wellness Screener.
So just a couple of updates for you. We completed the Center for Educational Effectiveness Student Universal Wellness Screener, which asks students what their perception is of their school experience, who their trusted adults are, things like that, that help us access. Thanks. That help us access that information so that we can support students. It has twofold. One is to help us identify students who are in crisis or students who are struggling and in some significant need. So we finished that screener, I want to say December 16th, the Monday before winter break. We'd had some technical issues with it, but we got it closed, and our schools are Monte Cristo, Granite Falls Middle School, Granite Falls High School, and Crossroads Open Doors were able to go in and see the data and make sure that they had made contact with every single student who was identifying as really in a high risk, in a really struggling way. And the next step is actually tomorrow is some training for our building admin around how to use the data for tier 3 for that crisis mode, but then also how to use that data for how they design school improvement to support climate and culture and belonging for students. What we know about belonging is that if we enhance the belonging of our students and help them feel like they belong to their classroom and to their school, their academic outcomes increase in many wonderful ways. An update about student growth goals. As you are aware, OSPI updated student growth goals over actually the last couple of years, and they are required to be used now during the 24-25 school year by OSPI. For better or for worse, our district had not been ramping up with professional learning for that. It should have been happening over the past 18 to 24 months. We managed to fast track it from August 28th and the last group to get that required training happen today. So our teachers are scrolled up and ready to deliver their student growth end of unit conversations with admin. Teaching and learning is tracking again every expenditure. We are on track per our spending plan, and we are seeing, and this is I should have put the word unearthing. We are seeing a steady decrease of surprises fiscally from the teaching and learning department, which is really wonderful news. And then at the bottom there around curriculum, our 6 through 12 ELA pilot is underway. Materials are being used. We will work through a discernment process about the materials evaluation, and we will come back to the curriculum instruction and assessment team
and the board to make a recommendation for May 2025 around whether we would like to adopt those materials or not. And finally, it is January, so we are ramping up for a variety of assessments to measure our students' growth, including, as we spoke about a lot this evening, the iReady Winter Benchmark is coming, MAP for the high school, and the WIDA assessment for our multilingual learners starts actually quite soon here at the end of January and goes through March. So we are working through those assessments and we are excited to see the growth. Do you have any questions for me about my slide? Fantastic. Thank you.
Really quickly, some upcoming district and community events. Of course, we have sports in full swing at Granite Falls High School, some information there. Our next school board meeting is not Monday, January 22nd. I don't know why it says that. It is on a Wednesday, January 22nd. We do have Success in Ed and Bridge Builder on that night. We do have a study session that we talked about at 4:45 that night. Millig will be here. They'll have done walkthroughs in both of our buildings and all of our buildings 2 days prior. The last thing I'd like to mention, it is part of the consent agenda, is they do not like a lot of fanfare, but Iron Mountain Quarry gave a generous donation specific to manufacturing. And I can't say enough about how nice it is to partner with them. They have been absolutely wonderful. They walked through our manufacturing classrooms at Granite Falls Middle School and Granite Falls High School and know the dream and the vision and the need in Snohomish County that's very clear for manufacturing jobs. And so they made a donation and I just really appreciate their partnership and their thoughtfulness and their belief in our students and our staff and what we're going to do with that donation. So thank you to them.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dana?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4D, business report prepared by Marshall Cooley.
Okay.
Put me up there, or you want me to stay here?
Wherever you're comfortable.
I'm happy to stay right next. Get here. The cookies? Yes. The cookies are my, yeah, exactly.
The cookies are her security.
Absolutely.
Would it be easy if I emailed you the PowerPoint real quick?
I'm about ready to get that report.
Okay.
Let's start.
Sure. So I think you guys have seen this since Friday probably, but as promised, nice, fresh, updated year-end forecast using data that we have through December payroll. We had a beginning fund balance this year of the little over $1 million, $1,035,000. We're forecasting revenues this year of about 44 million. We're forecasting expenditures of about 43 million with an ending fund balance of just under $2 million. That would be 4.6%. We're fairly conservative with our safety net. We're forecasting $1 million in safety net. We got a 1.3 million last year. Our expenses are actually up this year. We have a capacity of 2.5 million, meaning that we're going to spend 2.5 more million on special ed than we're receiving in revenue. So if we could show enough valid expenses to claim with safety net, we would be able to claim up to $2.5 million. We're forecasting $1 million. Better to be conservative and maybe get a little bit of a windfall at the end of the year than overestimate. Our capacity is 2.5 million, which is about the biggest capacity we've ever had. We're on pace to
probably spend over $9 million for special ed this year. Next slide is just kind of a breakdown of all the revenue that we have and a comparison to what revenue we had last year. The result is basically $3 million, almost $3.2 million more revenue this year than last year. That's offset by $4.2 million in forecasted expenses. And then as I've been becoming more involved in the nuts and bolts of how our payroll system works behind the scenes, there's some things that our payroll system I found out doesn't automatically capture that we thought was capturing. One is contracts for administrators that happen in July and August. Another is extra hours, overload, sub pay. It doesn't forecast any of that stuff. So this year, I would have far less surprises, did it a kind of a off the books forecast for those items that brings us up to about about $43 million in expenditures. The ending fund balance percentage going back.
Can you just pause there for a second?
Yeah.
What qualifies for a contracted service?
Contracted service. Yeah. So contracted service is if we have, it's a very, very big category. So it's all of our utilities are contracted services. Our insurance is contracted services. Any outside, if we have a student that's attending a school outside of Granite Falls, that's a contracted service. Like if they're going to Discovery or if they're going to the students that we have receiving special ed services outside of the state of Washington, that gets lumped in that category. It's kind of a big catch-all category of things.
Is there a way to disaggregate that more? I mean, I'm not trying to give you a ton of work, but that's why I'm asking that. I was like, because I mean, that number is striking, right?
Yeah.
It's more than we pay for benefits. It's more we pay for all of our classified staff. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at, the guy next to me's point, like the nurses, like contract, those types of things, like where we have people in the building that we're contracted with. I'd be interested to know what that number is.
Yeah, we can, I think maybe for next board report, how about I can do a deep dive into everything that falls under contracted services and what all those numbers are, like how much our utilities are, how much are out of district placements for students are, all that kind of stuff, break that down.
And the other reason I want that is, one of the legislative priorities this session is an increase in MSOC, right? Which is going to cover, hopefully, insurance, those types of things. So it allows me to give me a good talking point when I'm talking to legislators about what our real numbers are.
And Paris and I today just completed a little one sheet of our 3 legislative priorities that sent to Dana for review that I think she'll probably pass along to you if she's okay with it. But special ed funding, utilities and insurance, and regionalization are what we think are the 3 biggest things that impact Granite Falls right now. And we have dollar amounts associated with it, how it affects us and disproportionately to all the other districts around us, all these things. And I have it on a one sheet that we're going to put on the website and we can have available at events to let our community know that, hey, we are being disproportionately affected by the way the legislature has decided to handle some funding here of things. And these are all things that the whole state is trying to fix, all school districts, but we made it directly relatable to what's going on here.
Yeah, I think that would be great if you could do that. That'd be
That's
all I got on that.
Going back to just the big picture breakdown, this ends us at 4.6%. I think that the new technique for forecasting has captured a lot of those unknown things that have ended up surprising us as the years progressed. So I don't anticipate any crazy surprises. If anything, there could be some positive revenue from safety net. We built a budget that got us to 5.4%. So the forecast is falling short of the 5% that I think we're supposed to be at the end of this year. But we are continuing.
Did you say you think we need to be at?
Well, I know we're supposed to be at 5%. at the end of this year, but we are looking at every day, looking at ways to get there still. We think we still get there, but this is a realistic forecast of where we're gonna end up if nothing changes.
What changed between December and January? So in the December 11th meeting, we were at 5.2, about a $300,000 delta.
December 11th was just a budget. It wasn't actually a forecast. It was what our budget forecasted us.
Okay.
It's hard to really get run rates on things until you're 3 or 4 payrolls into the school year, until you get all the special ed contracts, the cost for services that our kids are having in other districts, all those things, a few apportionment reports. It's hard. It's really hard to give any kind of an accurate forecast of how you're really running until you get a few months under your belt.
Okay. And then also just out of curiosity, and maybe we'll go over this too. So I wanted to make sure I'm hearing things correctly. So 9 million in sped. After the state cap and safety net and everything, what's coming out of our pocket?
If we get $1 million in safety net, it'll be about $1.5 million that we're spending out of our pocket.
That's unfunded.
That's unfunded, yeah.
And remember, safety net doesn't cover it all because there's a threshold. So for every high cost kiddo, you have almost $40,000 that you've paid out of pocket first to even qualify for that safety.
I think also one of the important things to remember is that there's only 17 districts in the entire state of Washington that are above the cap for special ed. And of those 17 districts, it's like a total of 1,500 students that are above the cap, and it would cost the state $17 million just to eliminate the cap.
Yeah, and that was a discussion I had with quite a few people at the WASDA conference, but like, and not to like try to shoot ourselves in the foot, but like, unfortunately, I do see if I play devil's advocate, like the state's perspective of like, yes, it's a small amount, but if we open up the floodgates, like what then happens, in terms of how many, like, are we much more freely introducing IEPs? Is that like, is throwing an IEP and money at it, the resolution? Cause then like, do we just see a gross increase? Like, has this cap made individuals not just jump to that conclusion? And so like, I get that, but I also understand that we've been in all these financial discussions for the past several years. It is a struggle for us. And I think one thing that we do need to really work on, as well as I know, and I've been on that bandwagon too, about like how much we get relative to Sultan and, all these others, and how we're over the cap and how we're in a unique situation. But it's just, unfortunately, like, we are in the position that we are in, and we need to control what we can control. So like, I appreciate, Dawn, when you're talking, like recognizing the tier 1 aspect of the educational piece, because, Granite Falls is a special place, but we don't like, I forget who I was talking to, but they're like, but we don't have any different problems. Like if we look at some of the most hard pressed school districts in the nation, like we're not in the Bronx in New York. We're not, so like we need to find a way to, and again, I keep saying this disclaimer, I'm not the educational professional here. I don't know all the tier 1 supports and everything that we can do. But I mean, when I look at, this $1.5 million, difference, I mean, that's our levy, right? that is going towards this, and
it's a third of it going straight just to special ed, and then another 20% of it goes to pay the gap in utilities and insurance.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just all that to say is, I mean, I know we've been putting in a ton of hard work and all this behind it, and the utilities and insurance are not helping us by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, I mean, I'm just seeing even the forecast of the contracted services, right? That's up almost 13% year-over-year forecast. It looks like you had budgeted 8.8 million. But in all honesty, I don't know if we have the bandwidth, right, if it reached 8.8 million. And so that's just where I'm thinking worst case scenario, right? It's why we look for the rainy day fund and why we keep putting that money aside. But yeah, I appreciate you giving me the numbers, because I heard 9 million and my heart skipped a beat, which is why I'm wondering like what our costs are out of that. And I mean, 1.5 million is nothing to sneeze at either, so.
I think it's also important to when we look at the data that Dawn gave and you first put the brakes on, right?
Mhm.
And the numbers are maybe 1 or 2 less in special ed amount, but like, because it was growing over the last few years, specifically in this building. So there's been some concerted efforts to do intervention cycles and to let kindergartners be and be in a rich, literacy rich, print rich environment, routine rich environment, all of those things, right? And I agree with you 100% because we've had this conversation as well. That our kids are no different, actually probably more wonderful, right?
Yeah.
And so we are so fortunate to have the kiddos and the families that we have, and
Mhm.
we will continue to do that. It is, worked in special education for a good part of my career. It is really hard once kids are in and receiving special education services to exit out.
Yeah,
And so it's hard to turn that, but it's not undoable.
yeah.
And so I think that's the continued focus. I agree with you with the state. If I was a legislator, I probably wouldn't just remove the cap either. No offense. But it's just, right, I would worry that all of a sudden everybody's going to say, okay. But then I would argue the other side of it is we followed the rules and followed laws, and we have students who have qualified, and now we don't have funding for that. And Washington is a little different in that it's a flat funded state.
Yeah.
We don't get more for kids that have more needs and those kind of things. So there's a couple of pieces there. I'm working with the superintendent in Oak Harbor. That is one of the buildings on the, are the one of the districts on the list. Are there some moves we can make, you know, as systems who are adversely affected by the cap?
I guess to address the question of whether more students would qualify as the cap goes up, we didn't see that happen with the last 2 increases of the cap. When we looked at, when I looked at data for, 40 school districts, when they raised the cap enough that Seattle was no longer over the cap, Olympia was no longer over the cap, all the big districts were no longer over the cap. And when they did that, those districts didn't increase their special ed percentages to get closer to the cap. They stayed fairly flat, but the legislature did raise the cap so that they could fully fund the larger districts. And that was the bulk of the cost. There's an incremental cost of just finishing it.
Yeah.
And now, but now all the other districts are saying, well, you need to pay us more for the services we render. Sure, you raise the caps, and now all our students are getting that extra funding, but the percentages that they're getting isn't enough. So now they're lobbying to not worry about the cap anymore because, hey, we're all under the cap now. Let's change the multipliers to give us more funding for each student that qualifies. And that's the argument that is happening now, because who cares about the 17 districts that are above the cap when 90% of the students in the state of Washington are under the cap.
Okay. Well, we'll take both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
take
take the
both.
increased, right? And, you know, and take the if we
Yeah.
increase the cap. I would say that post-COVID, special education rates across the state increased. And that could be that we didn't rule out environment and exposure and all of those kind of things too. And it's exciting. And Reichdahl had said it last week, I think it was, and we saw the same growth here, that our kids are coming in more ready for K. 4% is a big deal. 4% statistically is a big deal.
Mhm.
So that means our kids have again had exposure and experience with preschool settings and early childhood settings and life settings, right? So they're coming in more ready for K, which is where we want them to be. They come in, if they've had preschool, or if they've had soccer, or if they've had whatever it is, they're more ready to access the learning that we're ready to provide.
Okay.
I dig you, Marshall. So I don't want anything I say after this to be misconstrued as me not digging you, because I dig you. You're a good dude.
All right.
But
hit me, Carl.
But you're breaking my heart.
I know.
And I'll tell you why. Policy 6022, which we wrote, you and I helped write together. It says during fiscal updates provided to the board, if fund balance forecasting anticipates a fund balance is lower than the minimum required fund balance for that school year, recovery plan will be provided at that same fiscal update detailing the necessary action to get back to the required minimum fund balance prior to the end of that school year. So I guess I appreciate the realistic update of 4.6, but I've also would have expected, and here's how we're going to get back to 5 at least. prior to the school year per our policy, and my heart is broken that that's not included with it, because we gotta get there. We have to.
What I would love to do is have another 6 weeks so we don't know what our transportation funding is yet this year. We won't know that until February. We don't really know what our special ed funding is. Apportionment trues up at the end of January. We'll have a even more accurate revenue. The delta is, $300,000. I think we're probably going to get $500,000 more in transportation money this year than what's forecast. That could solve the problem right there. But with the knowledge I know right now, this is where we're at. But there are plenty of things that are still estimates based on budget. And one of the things that the legislature and that all the lobbyist groups want to fix is that districts are blinded by transportation. The funding formula is so complex and based on so many weird data points in the previous 2 school years that nobody can forecast what their transportation revenue is going to be. And so they would like to have a way to have a more transparent way so districts can accurately forecast what their transportation revenue is. We're basing our transportation revenue on last year, but we spent a lot more. There's going to be some funding increases. Part of what you get in transportation revenue is based on how much you spent last year. Part of it is based on your ridership. Part of it is based on your mileage. Part of it is based on inflationary factors. It's going to be more than what we spent, what we got last year. We still don't know how much, and it's hard to. I don't want to come in here and say we got 1.6 million last year. We're going to get 2.1 million this year, and then disappoint you guys.
And I hear what you're saying, and I acknowledge that everything you probably said is true. And I will also say that when you and I worked together on that language, I remember asking you, Marshall, is that asking too much for you to give at that same meeting, right? Because we always felt like we were behind. Oh, we're going to fall back on fund balance. The board would say, oh, we don't like it. Then we'd have to wait till the next meeting. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Like we were always behind the train. And I said, is that asking too much? You're like, no, I think that's doable. So now you're telling me you need 6 weeks? Like where is it not doable? Do we need to use a policy?
I would not want to start working with cabinet and the administrators on ways to cut spending if we're not going to need that when we get all of our true revenue amounts from the state.
Okay, so this is an anomaly, is what you're saying, as far as
any December or January forecast is going to have a level of revenue uncertainty, and I'm always going to err on the conservative side of uncertainty,
which is what I appreciate from you. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I don't want to belabor the point, but hopefully you also understand my point. And like, I needed a way as a director to feel like I'm not constantly chasing the cat, right? Like I'm in some way in control of the cat, because there's so many things financially that we have no control of. It just happens, man. There's nothing I can do, right? One of my number one responsibilities is to protect the fiscal solvency of this district, right? And I need some tools to be able to accurately and effectively do that. And you're taking away one of the biggest things I have, which is policy 6022, by not being able to do that and have the updates. And I dig you. I don't want to be anything to be misconstrued as I don't dig you, but that is what's breaking my heart. So
yeah, I'm not going to deflect, but I did include in, you can peruse at your own leisure, the fund balance trends for the districts all around us. And there's nobody going to double their fund balance this year. There is only 3 districts, I think, that are going to increase their fund balance this year. It is an environment that is tremendously difficult to grow fund balance. And the fact that we're going to do everything in our power to hit 5%. We're going to hit 5%. If we have to make cuts, we'll make cuts. But we are going the opposite direction of the state of Washington right now. We're going the opposite direction really hard. And I don't want to dismiss or not recognize the tremendous amount of work last summer, this fall that everybody has done to try and build a plan to grow fund balance significantly in an environment where it is nearly impossible. Every factor is against us, and we are gonna come pretty close to doubling our fund balance.
I do want to jump in and say, while it might seem like a drop in the bucket, when I came on and unearthed a number of things for us at our August session, July session, that was not a retreat. There was about $1.2 million, roughly $700,000 unfunded of promises made for outside contracted services for curriculum. We put a pause on that. It would come right out of there, and that ending fund balance would be 1.282, right? As of right now, though we are not in a formal budget cutting cycle, some of the work that we're engaged in across the district, including technology committee, is doing a deep inventory of what we currently own, what we currently use as software, because what I know is when I say that there are no surprises, it's because I haven't received a random $18,000 bill in the last 3 weeks. Over the course of the last number of months, I have received bill after bill after bill after bill of promises made or software platforms that we're supposed to be using and those kinds of things. So while we're not in that budget cutting cycle yet, we are continuing to work very efficiently to evaluate current program, at least from a teaching and learning perspective. And though it was a little painful for staff, like we talk about our core learning, we are not currently spending $220,000 on people to come in and help us learn how to teach. We're using our funds of resource and our funds of knowledge here. So I am actively working with multiple committees to inventory and to start looking at, honestly, good fiscally stewardship decisions for moving forward, because a 1.2 expenditure just out of teaching and learning is not going to be sustainable for us.
And I'll say this too, not to speak for Carl, but I think if we're looking at this, I don't think we're far off, meaning from what would be useful, because we see a fiscal report, we see a drop, and there is a roadmap to that 5%, right? So to speak, there's a potential there. In my business personally, every month when I forecast, there's a worst case, likely, and best case. And so even just something like, clearly you have that information in your head, but like, obviously, as we're like preparing for the meeting and we're going through and looking, like even just like a slide with something like, this is likely, this is best case. And, best case includes like, there could be $500,000 extra coming from transportation. We're not sure of that. That's why I'm not including it in my likely forecast. And then like worst case is, utilities and insurance go up another 25%, something that we're not expecting, but hey, it could happen, sort of thing. Because then I think, Carl, to use your analogy, I think that helps us understand the cat's movements a little bit more and understand that when we come in, we can look and say, hey, okay, so like, now our discussion is more around what's the likelihood of that transportation coming in, because and to Carl's point, like, I think none of us want to be in the position, whereas if, cuts or something like that are a real possibility, and that's the only way that we get to that 5%, that we have those 6 weeks to wrap our mind around it, to, those additional 6 weeks to consider that, like, how likely of a scenario is that versus like 6 weeks later, boom, our transportation budget isn't anywhere near what we expected. In fact, and then also utilities went up. So now we're at from 4.6%, now we're down to 4.3%. And then all of a sudden we're reeling. And so I think if we can have that understanding about the likelihood of where we could land, again, I don't think, my assumption is it's probably not asking too much, because it sounds like you already have that in your head.
Yeah.
And it's just creating like a real like crisp few bullet points about like best case, likely, worst case.
I like that a lot. I'll add that next time.
Okay. I don't know if that's helpful.
I didn't speak and you're killing it. Good job. Well done. Well done, Director Ledoux.
Oh, thank you. Well, and thank you, Marshall.
I dig you.
I dig you. With all due respect, but I said with all due respect.
I
stood there and took it.
Any more questions?
Good.
All right. Moving on to item number 4E, board reports. No community report today. Let's go with Ledge report.
Yeah, I'll go real quick because I know we're past time. The session doesn't, well, actually, let me start here, just real quick. Oh, gosh. Geek moment. Okay, I'm in Edmonds, your old stomping grounds, right? And I'm having a very nice dinner with my family. And this person walks in and I'm staring at him. I'm like, why does he look so familiar to me? And we meet eyes and there's always that weird, like, where do I know you from? Then it hits me. Oh my God, that's Senator Maria Cantwell. Who I met like 4 years ago. I'm part of a group, the WASDA group, talking about IDEA. And I must have been staring at her like a creeper because she was like, I know you, don't you? Don't I? And I was like, yeah, you know me. I was like, I was in DC talking about, she was like, weren't you from like a small town in Washington? I was like, oh my goodness, you remember who I am? So anyway, I don't know why, but that was really cool. Okay, the session doesn't start till January 13th. As you guys probably know, that there's a shortfall that they're now saying is going to be somewhere around 10 to 12 billion dollars. So there's a lot of discussion and stuff about how they're going to address that, raise taxes, cut things, blah, blah, blah. The cut that kind of broke my heart when I read about it, the non-majority party in Washington, what they're pushing as a cut to early childhood education. They think they'll save around $300 million. And cutting state Medicare benefits. So anyway, Reich Dahl, God bless his soul, he's asking for a $2.9 billion increase in education funding, which I would love. My feelings about whether that is realistic or not is probably money. Yeah. So there's a lot of there's a lot of pre-bills. There's no even need to talk about them. Some are really good, some are really bad. Who knows what actually make it to caucus and to the floor and stuff like that. Obviously, I will keep an eye on it. This is a long session, so it's a 105-day session. So there will be a lot of time, and in a long session, a lot of things can happen. So that's really all I've got.
Okay. WIA.
No real updates today. Dana always does a good job too of keeping our local. So no, I appreciate it too. It gets it up there, lets people plan earlier than waiting until the board reports.
Yeah. Friday night, girls are home.
Awesome. Alrighty, moving on to item 5A, items from the floor. Okay. And then we go to 6A, new business, first reading to amend policy 5400 personnel leaves.
That one is just a quick update. It takes out some COVID.
Was that a WASDA thing?
It's just taking out COVID language, because unless we have another pandemic, we won't need to have it.
Bird flu's been hitting recently.
I make a motion to, wait, when you call for, are we still in discussion?
Oh, are we still in discussion, anybody? No, we're good.
Okay, I make a motion, I move to approve the first reading to amend policy 5400 personal leaves.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty. Moving on, 7A, unfinished business, second reading to amend policy 3414/3414P, infectious disease. Any discussion?
I move to accept the second reading to amend policy 3414, 3414P, infectious disease.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
7B, the second reading to amend policy 3420/3420P, anaphylaxis prevention and response. Any discussion?
I move that we accept the second reading to amend policy 3420/3420P, anaphylaxis prevention and response.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Second reading to amend policy 3424/3424P, opioid related overdose reversal. Any discussion? No?
I move to accept the second reading to amend policy 3424, 3424P, opioid related overdose reversal.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Second reading to amend policy 4215, tobacco-free schools and grounds.
Your turn, Bill.
I move that we accept the second reading of policy 4215, tobacco-free schools and grounds.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And second reading to amend policy 5005, employment and volunteers, disclosures, certification requirements, assurances, and approval.
I move that we approve the second reading to amend policy 5005, employment and volunteers, disclosure, certification requirements, assurance and approval.
I'll second that. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, the second reading to amend policy 6600, transportation.
I move to accept the second reading to amend policy 6600, transportation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. And next we have the consent agenda, with additions to consent. Any discussion?
I just want to say a huge thank you to Iron Mountain for an unbelievably gracious donation to our program. And I want to give a huge thank you to the middle school staff that I know spent a lot of time walking them through and showing them classrooms, and Dana for engaging them and walking through. They in their note, they talk extensively about how impressed they are. And I want to just read a sentence. We believe that the skills that you are teaching can be life-changing for many students, and that is exactly what we're here to do. So just a huge thank you to them.
Cool. So, we approve the.
If there's no discussion.
There's no other discussion, then consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Got it. All right, the time is now 8:09.